The arrival of the hegemony, the Zinthari. Hegemony had ruled the galaxy with an iron fist for 50,000 years. Their crystalline ships, powered by harvested stars, had traveled from one end of the Milky Way to the other, bringing every sentient species under their control. Their empire stretched across 1,000,000 worlds, each one paying tribute to the Golden Throne on Zenthara Prime. No species had ever successfully resisted them. Those who tried became cautionary tales. Their homeworlds turned to glass. Their cultures erased from history. Commander Vexthon stood on the bridge of his command vessel, the Eternal Dominance, studying the latest discovery from their deep space probes, a small cluster of colonies in the Perseus Arm, inhabited by a species calling themselves humans. The probe data showed primitive fusion technology, basic kinetic weapons, and ships that could barely manage faster than light travel. They had colonized perhaps 20 worlds, their furthest outpost being a mining station on a frozen rock they called Haven. The protocol was simple and had been unchanged for millennia. New species were given one chance to submit peacefully. Those who accepted became servants of the Empire, their resources and people dedicated to the greater glory of Zenthara. Those who refused were eliminated as examples to others. Vexthon had performed this duty hundreds of times. Each time the outcome was the same. Fear would grip the primitives and they would bow. He transmitted the standard message to Earth, humanity's apparent homeworld. The message was elegant in its simplicity, translated into mathematical concepts that any spacefaring civilization could understand. Submit to the Zenthari hegemony. Prepare for integration. Resistance means extinction. Your response is required within one solar rotation. The response came faster than expected, barely 3 hours after transmission. It was short, transmitted in multiple human languages in the same mathematical code. The message read simply, "We decline your offer. Please leave our space. We wish no conflict but will defend ourselves if necessary." Vexthon stared at the message, his forearms crossing in confusion. In 50,000 years, only 3 species had refused the initial offer. All 3 had been wiped from existence within days. These humans, with their primitive technology and handful of colonies, dared to refuse the might of the hegemony. It was almost amusing in its absurdity. He opened a channel to Zenthara Prime, connecting directly with the High Council. The 12 beings who governed the Empire in the Emperor's name appeared as holograms around him, their crystalline bodies refracting light in complex patterns that denoted their moods. Currently, those patterns showed amusement mixed with irritation. High Counselor Zephyra spoke first, her voice resonating through subspace. "These humans refuse our generous offer. With what do they plan to resist? Their ships that barely exceed light speed? Their projectile weapons that we abandoned as primitive before their species even evolved? Let them serve as an example. Take the Fifth Armada, turn their frontier colonies to ash. Leave their homeworld for last so they can watch their people burn." Vexthon bowed deeply. "It shall be done, High Counselor, though it seems excessive to deploy an entire armada against such a weak opponent." The Fifth Armada consisted of 2,000 warships, each one capable of destroying a planet. It was a force that had brought entire stellar empires to their knees. Zephyra's form flickered with what might have been satisfaction. "Excessive force sends a message, Commander. Other species are watching. They must see that defiance, no matter how small, is met with overwhelming destruction. Make it spectacular. Make it memorable. Make sure that no species ever dares refuse us again." The connection ended and Vexthon began preparations. Within hours, 2,000 ships of the Fifth Armada gathered at the edge of Zenthari space. Each vessel was a work of art. Crystalline hulls that could withstand the heat of a star's surface, weapons that could crack planets like eggs. Their crews, drawn from a dozen conquered species, moved with practiced efficiency. The target was Haven, humanity's most distant colony. 5 million humans lived there, mostly miners and their families. It would be a simple demonstration. Arrive, destroy the colony, broadcast the destruction to Earth and the other human worlds. Fear would do the rest. The Armada entered hyperspace, reality bending around them as they traveled faster than light itself. The journey to Haven would take only days. Vexthon spent the time reviewing human history from the probe data. They were a young species, barely 300 years into their space age. They had fought wars among themselves, shown creativity in their technology despite its primitive nature. But nothing in their history suggested they could stand against the hegemony. As the armada approached Haven's system, Vexthon felt the familiar sensation of a hunt nearing its end. He had done this so many times before. The panic in the communications, the desperate attempts to negotiate, the final screams as worlds burned. It was the natural order of the galaxy. The strong dominated the weak. The Xanthari were the strongest, but as they dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Haven's system, something was wrong. The colony was evacuating. Hundreds of ships, from massive cargo haulers to small personal craft, were streaming away from the planet. They weren't trying to fight or negotiate. They were simply leaving, with calm efficiency that suggested this had been planned. More concerning was what the sensors detected behind Haven's largest moon. An energy signature unlike anything in the Xanthari database. Something massive was hiding there. Something that shouldn't exist according to everything they knew about human technology. Vexthon felt an unfamiliar sensation creeping up his spine. After commanding fleets for 3 centuries, after bringing dozens of species to heel, Commander Vexthon of the Xanthari hegemony felt something he hadn't experienced in a very long time. Uncertainty. The hidden fortress, the sensor readings made no sense. Behind Haven's moon lurked an energy signature that dwarfed anything the Fifth Armada had encountered. Vexthon ordered his fleet to maintain formation while sending reconnaissance drones ahead. The images they transmitted back defied comprehension. Rising from behind the lunar horizon came a structure that shouldn't exist. The humans had built something impossible. The Prometheus, according to the identification beacon it broadcast, was not merely a ship. It was a mobile battle station 20 kilometers long and 8 kilometers in diameter. Its hull was black as space itself, covered in angular armor plating that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Weapon ports dotted its surface like stars, each one glowing with barely contained energy. Sub-Commander Krelvar, a veteran of 40 campaigns, studied the tactical display with growing unease. "Commander, that structure is generating gravitational anomalies. They're using artificial singularities for power generation. That technology is theoretical even for us. How did a species that just discovered faster-than-light travel build something like this?" Vexthon's mind raced through possibilities. Had the humans found ancient technology, made contact with an unknown advanced species, or had they somehow developed this in secret? None of the options made sense given what they knew about human capabilities. But there it was, defying all logic and expectation. A fortress ship that rivaled anything in the hegemony's arsenal. All ships. Combat Formation Alpha. Concentrate fire on that abomination. Whatever it is, it's still just one vessel against 2,000. Begin the attack. The Fifth Armada moved with practiced precision, forming a sphere around the Prometheus to attack from all angles simultaneously. Plasma cannons charged, antimatter missiles armed, graviton beams aligned. This was the might that had crushed civilizations, the power that had made the Xanthari masters of the galaxy. "Fire," Vexthon commanded. Space itself seemed to scream as 2,000 ships unleashed their weapons simultaneously. Beams of superheated plasma that could melt continents. Missiles carrying antimatter payloads that could crack moons. Exotic energy weapons that disrupted matter at the quantum level. All of it converged on the Prometheus in a display of destruction that would have been visible from neighboring star systems. The shields held. A sphere of golden energy surrounded the human fortress, rippling like water where weapons struck but never breaking. The barrage that should have vaporized any known vessel barely seemed to strain the defensive systems. The Prometheus sat at the center of the maelstrom, unmoved and undamaged. Then it returned fire. The weapons the Prometheus deployed were unlike anything in Xanthari military doctrine. They fired projectiles, simple chunks of metal, but accelerated them to speeds that approached significant fractions of light speed. The kinetic energy involved was astronomical. The first projectile struck the battlecruiser Infinite Glory, and the ship didn't explode so much as it ceased to exist, transformed instantly into an expanding cloud of superheated gas. More projectiles followed, each one guided with impossible precision. The Xanthari ships tried to evade. But how do you dodge something moving at 60% the speed of light? By the time sensors detected the projectile, it had already hit. Ships died by the dozens, their crystalline hulls shattering like glass, their crews vaporized before they could scream. "Deploy fighters." "All ships, evasive pattern Omega," Vexthon shouted. watching his tactical display fill with casualty reports. Thousands of fighter craft launched from the Armada's carriers, swarming toward the Prometheus like angry insects. These were the elite pilots of the hegemony, each one trained from birth for space combat. They would overwhelm the fortress's point defenses through sheer numbers. The Prometheus responded by launching its own fighters, but these were not piloted by humans. As the Xanthari would later learn, each fighter was controlled by an uploaded human consciousness, volunteers who had chosen to merge with their machines. They thought at the speed of light, reacted faster than any biological pilot could, and fought with the determination of those defending their species' survival. The dogfight that followed was less a battle and more a massacre. The human fighters moved in perfect coordination, like a single organism with thousands of bodies. They anticipated every Xanthari maneuver, exploited every weakness, turned every advantage against their enemies. Within minutes, the space around the Prometheus was littered with the debris of Xanthari fighters. Vexithon watched his forces crumble with growing horror. The Prometheus continued its methodical destruction of his fleet, its main guns picking off capital ships with mechanical precision, while its fighters cleared the smaller vessels. His armada, the force that had conquered worlds and broken empires, was being systematically dismantled by a single human installation. "Commander, we've lost 40% of the fleet. Shields are failing on multiple vessels. We need to retreat," Krelvar reported, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. Vexthon wanted to refuse, wanted to continue the attack until either the Prometheus or his entire fleet was destroyed. But he was a commander first, and his duty was to preserve what forces he could. The hegemony would need to know what they faced here. This was not the primitive species they had expected. All ships, emergency jump to hyperspace. Random vectors regroup at staging point Sigma. The surviving ships of the Fifth Armada fled, jumping into hyperspace in all directions to avoid pursuit. As the Eternal Dominance prepared its own jump, Vexthon took one last look at the Prometheus. It hung in space, surrounded by the debris of his fleet, its weapons finally silent. It had not pursued the fleeing ships, content to simply defend its territory. In that moment, Vexthon understood something that would soon shake the entire hegemony. The humans hadn't been surprised by their arrival. They had been waiting for it. The evacuation, the hidden fortress, the impossible technology, this had all been prepared in advance. Humanity had known the Xanthari would come, and they had prepared for war on a scale the hegemony had never imagined possible. The War Council, the throne room on Xanthara Prime, had not seen such chaos in 10,000 years. Emperor Zix Theta, ancient even by Xanthari standards, sat upon his throne of living crystal while the High Council argued before him. The loss of 60% of the Fifth Armada had sent shockwaves through the Empire. Never in their history had they suffered such a defeat, especially not at the hands of a supposedly primitive species. High Counselor Zephyra's form flickered with rage, her crystalline body cycling through colors that indicated fury and disbelief. One ship, they destroyed over 1,000 vessels with one ship. How is this possible? Our intelligence indicated they had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Where did this technology come from? Lord Admiral Hexton, Supreme Commander of all hegemony forces, displayed the tactical recordings from the battle. The holographic projection showed the Prometheus in all its terrible glory, methodically destroying ship after ship with weapons that defied conventional understanding. Study these recordings carefully. Notice the precision of their targeting, the efficiency of their fire patterns. This isn't just advanced technology. It's technology specifically designed to counter our own. The Emperor's voice resonated through the chamber, causing all discussion to cease. Explain, Admiral. How could a species we've never encountered before develop countermeasures to our weapons and tactics? Hexton manipulated the hologram, highlighting specific aspects of the human fortress. Your Majesty, I believe the humans have been observing us for far longer than we realized. Look at their shield configuration. It's specifically tuned to dissipate our plasma weapons. Their armor is designed to reflect our graviton beams. They knew exactly what we would bring against them and prepared accordingly. Minister of Intelligence Voxnil added his own analysis. Our deep archives show anomalous sensor readings from the Perseus arm dating back nearly 60 years. Probe malfunctions, we thought at the time. But what if they weren't malfunctions? What if the humans detected our surveillance and began preparing even then? The implications were staggering. If true, It meant humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, developing weapons and defenses specifically to fight the Zenthari. It was a level of foresight and preparation that the hegemony had never encountered. Emperor Zixitheta rose from his throne, his massive form towering over the council. Then we shall show them the true might of the hegemony. Admiral Hexton, prepare the Grand Armada. Not just one fleet, but 10, 20,000 ships. We will crush this Prometheus and reduce every human world to ash. No species defies the Zenthari and survives. Your Majesty, Hexton began carefully. There's another complication. Our sensors detected multiple similar energy signatures throughout human space during our retreat. They may have more of these fortress ships than we destroy them all. Zephyra interjected. The galaxy watches us. If we show weakness now, if we allow these humans to stand against us, others might follow their example. The entire empire could unravel. The Emperor considered this. For 50,000 years, the hegemony had maintained control through fear as much as force. If word spread that a young species had successfully resisted them, it could inspire rebellions across the galaxy. The conquered species might begin to hope, and hope was dangerous. Very well. Admiral, you have unlimited resources. Conscript forces from every conquered world. Empty our reserve fleets. Activate the ancient weapons from the core vaults. I want a force that could destroy stars themselves. These humans will serve as an example, but not the one they intended. They will show the galaxy what happens when anyone, no matter how clever or prepared, stands against the Zenthari hegemony. As the council dispersed to prepare for total war, none of them noticed the small maintenance drone in the corner of the throne room. Its design was standard Zenthari, but its controlling intelligence was something else entirely. The uploaded human consciousness within had been observing for weeks, one of hundreds infiltrated throughout the Empire. Everything said in the throne room was transmitted instantly back to human command. On Earth, in a bunker buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Sarah Chen reviewed the intelligence with her staff. The command center was a fusion of human and reverse-engineered alien technology, displays showing the positions of human forces across the galaxy. The Prometheus was just one of 12 similar installations, each one hidden in different systems, each one ready for the storm that was coming. They're mobilizing everything, Chen announced to her staff. 20,000 ships minimum, possibly more. They're scared, and that makes them dangerous. But it also makes them predictable. Colonel Martinez, how are our recruitment numbers? Martinez pulled up the data. Volunteer rates for consciousness uploading have exceeded projections by 300%. The entire species understands what's at stake. We'll have enough pilots for every fighter, enough minds for every defensive system. Humanity stands united, General. Chen nodded, then turned to Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of the Xenobiology Division. Doctor, what's the status of our diplomatic outreach to the conquered species? Tanaka's expression was cautiously optimistic. We've made contact with resistance groups on 47 worlds. The Zenthari rule through fear, but that fear is weakening. If we can demonstrate that they can be beaten, really beaten, we might trigger rebellions across the Empire. The Vaxiri, the Quellans, the Morphic Collective, they all want freedom. They just need to believe it's possible. Chen studied the strategic display, watching as Zenthari fleets began gathering from across the galaxy. The next battle would be different. It wouldn't just be about defending human space. It would be about breaking the myth of Zenthari invincibility once and for all. The empire that had ruled for 50 millennia was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their preparation, was their ability to inspire others to fight for their freedom. Part 4. The Siege of Prometheus, the Sea. Assembled Zenthari Grand Armada was a sight that would have broken the will of any rational species. 23,000 warships drawn from every corner of the Empire filled space like a metallic plague. At its center, the Emperor's personal flagship, the Eternal Throne, a vessel 50 kilometers long and armed with weapons that had never been used in actual combat. Around it, the pride of the hegemony's fleet, ships that had crushed rebellions and conquered systems. Admiral Hexton stood on the bridge of the Eternal Throne, watching as his forces took position around Haven's system. This time they would not underestimate the humans. Long-range scouts had confirmed the Prometheus remained in position, seemingly alone, waiting for them. The arrogance of it rankled him. One ship, no matter how advanced, against the might of the entire hegemony. All forces begin Operation Starfall, Hexton commanded. The plan was elegant in its brutality. Rather than engage the Prometheus directly, they would first destroy Haven itself, then every moon, every asteroid, every possible refuge in the system. They would turn space itself into a killing field, leaving the human fortress nowhere to hide, nothing to defend. The first wave consisted of 5,000 ships, each targeting different celestial bodies with planet cracker missiles. Haven itself was hit with enough firepower to reduce it to rubble. Its 3 moons were shattered, turned into expanding clouds of debris. The asteroid mining stations were vaporized. Within minutes, 5 million human colonists were dead. The Prometheus responded exactly as Hexton had anticipated. It moved to engage, its massive form accelerating with impossible grace for something so large. This was what he had wanted, to draw it out, to force it to fight in open space where his numerical advantage would matter. Second wave. Engage, surround and overwhelm. Another 5,000 ships moved in from multiple vectors, creating a sphere of destruction around the Prometheus. This time they didn't all fire at once. Instead, they maintained a constant barrage, alternating their fire to prevent the fortress's shields from recovering. It was a tactic that had broken the defenses of countless worlds. The Prometheus's shields held, but Hexton could see they were straining. The golden sphere of energy flickered and sparked where weapons struck. Just a little more pressure and they would fall. He was about to order the third wave forward when space itself seemed to ripple. Hyperspace windows opened throughout the system. Not dozens, not hundreds, but thousands. From each one emerged human vessels, designs the Xanthari had never seen before. These weren't more fortress ships, but sleek destroyers, agile frigates, and massive battleships. The human fleet had arrived, over 3,000 vessels strong, each one incorporating the same impossible technology as the Prometheus. But that wasn't what made Hexton's blood freeze. It was the other ships, the ones that emerged alongside the human fleet. Vaxiri Corsairs, their organic vessels pulsing with bioluminescent energy. Quellan hive ships, each one home to millions of the insectoid warriors. Morphic collective adaptation cruisers, their forms shifting and changing even as they emerged from hyperspace. The conquered species of the hegemony had come to fight alongside humanity. Impossible, Hexton whispered. They wouldn't dare. The retribution would be absolute. His tactical officer's voice was tight with panic. Admiral, we're receiving communications from across the Empire. Rebellions on every conquered world. The garrison fleets are requesting immediate reinforcement. The entire Empire is rising against us. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain James Walker allowed himself a grim smile. For 3 years, human agents had been spreading throughout Xanthari space, making contact with resistance movements, sharing technology, coordinating plans. Every species that had been crushed under the hegemony's boot had been waiting for this moment, for someone to show them that the Xanthari could bleed. All forces. Execute Operation Liberation. For Earth, for Haven, for freedom. The combined fleet attacked with coordination that the Xanthari couldn't match. Human ships with their uploaded pilots served as the spearhead, punching through enemy formations. The Vaxiri used their biological weapons to disrupt Xanthari shields. The Quellans swarmed larger vessels, their fighters overwhelming point defenses. The Morphic Collective adapted to every Xanthari tactic in real time, their ships literally evolving during combat. The Prometheus itself had transformed. Sections of its hull opened, revealing weapons that humanity had kept in reserve. Gravitational pulse cannons that created miniature black holes. Quantum disruptors that caused matter to phase out of existence. Weapons based on principles the Xanthari hadn't even theorized. The Grand Armada, for all its might, began to crumble. Ships designed to inspire fear found themselves facing enemies who no longer felt it. Crews drawn from conquered species began to mutiny, turning their weapons on their Xanthari officers. The battle became a chaos of shifting allegiances and desperate fighting. Admiral Hexton watched his perfect plan dissolve into disaster. The tactical display showed red everywhere, casualty reports streaming in faster than he could process. The Eternal Throne itself was taking fire, its massive shields buckling under concentrated assault from human battleships. "Your Majesty," he said, turning to where Emperor Zixtheta stood watching the battle. "We must retreat. The Empire needs you to survive." The Emperor's form radiated fury and disbelief. 50,000 years, Admiral. 50,000 years of supremacy, ended by primitives and slaves. How did we not see this coming? Before Hexton could answer, the bridge shook violently. The Prometheus had turned its main guns on the Eternal Throne. Each impact caused the massive vessel to shudder, its shields flaring and failing in sections. Through the viewports, they could see human fighters strafing their hull, Quellan warriors beginning to board through breaches. The myth of Zenthari invincibility died in the fire above Haven. The Grand Armada, the greatest military force ever assembled by the hegemony, broke and ran. Ships fled in every direction, many carrying mutinous crews who would never return to Zenthari space. The Eternal Throne itself barely escaped, jumping to hyperspace with its hull breached in a dozen places, carrying an emperor who finally understood that his empire's time had ended. Humanity's counteroffensive. The victory at Haven sent shockwaves across the galaxy. For the first time in 50 millennia, the Zenthari hegemony had been decisively defeated. The news spread faster than light itself, carried by quantum communications and fleeing refugees. On a million worlds, beings who had lived their entire lives under Zenthari rule began to believe that freedom was possible. General Sarah Chen stood in the transformed command center on Earth, now the de facto headquarters of what the media had begun calling the Liberation Alliance. Representatives from 43 species filled the amphitheater, some appearing as holograms, others having made the journey to humanity's homeworld in person. The diversity was staggering, beings of every conceivable form united by a common purpose. The Zenthari Empire is wounded but not dead, Chen addressed the assembly. Our victory at Haven proved they can be beaten, but they still control thousands of systems, millions of ships, and vast resources. If we give them time to regroup, to adapt to our tactics, they will return stronger than before. The Vaxiri representative, a being that looked like living crystal filled with flowing light, pulsed as it spoke. The bioweapon research stations in the Nexus cluster must be destroyed. The Zenthari have been developing plagues specifically designed for each member species of our alliance. If they deploy them, entire worlds could die within days. The Quellan Hive Queen, speaking through one of her warrior drones, added her perspective. Our intelligence suggests panic in the Zenthari core worlds. They never planned for widespread rebellion. Their garrison forces are scattered, trying to suppress uprisings on thousands of planets simultaneously. This is our moment to strike at their infrastructure. Chen nodded, manipulating the holographic display to show the galaxy. Red markers indicated Zenthari-controlled systems, but now blue markers showed liberated worlds, and their number was growing hourly. We've prepared for this. Operation Cascade begins immediately. We hit 12 critical targets simultaneously. Supply depots, shipyards, communication hubs. We turn their own strategy against them, using overwhelming force to break their ability to coordinate defense. Dr. Yuki Tanaka presented the technical aspects. We've completed reverse engineering of Zenthari shield technology and found critical weaknesses. Their entire fleet uses a standardized frequency modulation. With the quantum viruses our uploaded volunteers have developed, we can cause their shields to fail simultaneously across entire fleets. The Morphic Collective's representative, a constantly shifting mass of adaptive tissue, resonated with approval. Your uploaded consciousness technology has proven remarkable. We wish to contribute our own adaptive algorithms to the project. The fusion of human consciousness transfer and morphic adaptation could create warriors unlike anything the galaxy has seen. Over the next hours, the Alliance planned the most ambitious military operation in galactic history. 12 fleets would strike simultaneously across the Empire. Each fleet combined human technology with the unique capabilities of their allied species. The Vaxiri's biological warfare would disable Zenthari crews. The Quellan's numbers would overwhelm defenses. The Morphic Collective would adapt to counter any new weapons, and humanity's uploaded consciousnesses would coordinate it all at the speed of thought. The attacks began exactly 72 hours after Haven. At the Koreth shipyards, where the Zenthari built their largest warships, a combined human-Quellan fleet appeared without warning. The shipyard's defenses, designed to repel conventional attacks, couldn't adapt to the Quellan swarm tactics directed by human tactical algorithms. Within hours, construction facilities that had operated for thousands of years were reduced to orbital debris. At the central communication nexus, Vaxiri bioships released clouds of organisms that consumed the exotic matter powering the quantum transmitters. The Zenthari's ability to coordinate across their empire collapsed. individual systems suddenly isolated and vulnerable. The fortress world of Thix, considered impregnable, fell to morphic collective adaptation cruisers that literally evolved countermeasures to its defenses in real time, guided by human strategic planning that anticipated every Xanthari response. But the most crucial battle occurred at the Archive Worlds, where the Xanthari stored the collective knowledge of their empire. General Chen personally led this assault aboard the Prometheus, now refitted with Alliance technology. The Xanthari had gathered their remaining loyal fleets here, understanding that losing the archives would mean losing the technological advantage they had maintained for millennia. The battle was fierce. The Xanthari fought with the desperation of a dying empire, using weapons they had kept in reserve for millennia. Singularity bombs that created temporary black holes, Chronos missiles that displaced targets in time, quantum scramblers that tried to disrupt the uploaded consciousnesses. But for every weapon the Xanthari deployed, the Alliance had a counter. The uploaded human minds, now numbering in the millions, formed a distributed consciousness that couldn't be disrupted. The morphic collective adapted to each new weapon within minutes. The Vaxiri's biological constructs consumed Xanthari ammunition before it could fire. The Quellans simply overwhelmed defenses through sheer numbers. The turning point came when Captain James Walker, his consciousness now permanently uploaded into the Prometheus's systems, achieved something thought impossible. He hacked into the Xanthari Central Command Network, using quantum entanglement protocols the aliens had never imagined could be breached. For crucial minutes he controlled their fleet movements, turning their own ships against each other. The Archive Worlds fell, and with them, the Xanthari's technological supremacy. The knowledge of 50,000 years was now in Alliance hands, freely shared among all member species. Technologies that had been hoarded to maintain control were distributed to worlds that had been kept deliberately primitive. On Xanthera Prime, Emperor Zixatheta watched his empire crumble. Reports flooded in of systems declaring independence, of garrison fleets defecting, of subject species he had considered broken beyond repair now flying their own flags. His throne room, once filled with sycophants and conquered leaders, was nearly empty. Only his most loyal guards remained, and even their dedication seemed to waver. High Counselor Zephyra entered, her crystalline form dim with exhaustion. "Your Majesty, they offer terms. The humans and their alliance. They offer us a choice." Part 6. The Empire Crumbles. The message from the Liberation Alliance was broadcast across every remaining Xanthari communication channel, in every language spoken in the Empire. General Sarah Chen appeared on screens and holograms throughout Xanthari space, her face calm but determined. Behind her stood representatives of every species in the Alliance, a visual testament to the unity they had achieved. To the citizens of the Xanthari hegemony, both rulers and ruled, we bring you a choice. The old empire is ending. You have seen your fleets defeated, your weapons overcome, your absolute rule broken. But we do not seek your destruction. We seek something far more valuable. Your participation in a new galactic order. On Xanthera Prime, Emperor Zixatheta watched with his remaining council. The throne room that had once hosted delegations from across the galaxy now held only a handful of loyal supporters. High Counselor Zephyra's form flickered with uncertainty, while Admiral Hexton stood rigid, his forearms crossed in defiance. "They dare offer us terms?" Hexton spat. "We are the Xanthari. We have ruled for 50 millennia. We do not negotiate with lesser species." Chen continued her broadcast. "To the conquered species still under Xanthari rule, we say this. Your liberation is at hand. Rise up, take back your worlds. The Alliance stands ready to support you with weapons, technology, and forces. You are not alone anymore. To the Xanthari themselves, we offer this choice. Surrender your weapons, release your conquered subjects, and join the Galactic Federation as equals. You will have one voice among many. Your knowledge and culture preserved but no longer used to oppress, or continue to fight and face the combined might of a united galaxy. You have 72 hours to decide." The response was immediate and devastating to Xanthari control. On thousands of worlds, species that had been enslaved for millennia rose in rebellion. The images were broadcast across the galaxy. Vaxiri bioships growing from hidden seeds on occupied worlds. Quellan hives erupting from underground warrens thought destroyed centuries ago. Morphic collective cells that had hidden in plain sight, suddenly revealing their true nature. The Xanthari garrison forces, already weakened by defections and defeats, couldn't contain the uprisings. Many simply surrendered, laying down weapons rather than fighting battles they knew they couldn't win. Others fled to the core world seeking safety that no longer existed. But not all Zenthari accepted defeat. Warlord Krextor, commanding the 7th Fleet, declared himself the true emperor and launched a campaign of terror. His ships attacked liberated worlds with weapons of mass destruction, turning 3 planets to ash before the Alliance could respond. His message was simple. For every Zenthari ship destroyed, he would burn a world. The Alliance response was swift and decisive. These